So now, Effie, I'm uh, hoping that you are, ready to buckle up and go on a
Yes.
wild journey
I'm so excited.
with Danny, your fellow MG, who is going to be giving you a lot of aha after ahas. So it's going to be Wild Town. So Danny, I hope you're ready to have some fun with our fellow MG here and tag a team out.
Effie, it's so good
Hi.
to see you. I was watching this thing. It was amazing. You really took me back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Through this work, I've come to know my child in a really unique way, like
Yes.
deeply. So
Yes.
many different angles. And when you're like embrace it and see it and hold it, and I'm like, oh my God, this language is riddled through what I'll be talking to you about today. I was just blown away by a psychic attunement, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I'm
shows up.
so excited.
Me too. So I have my book here. And your chart's about to come up. So query, couple questions. Are you in your human design experiment? Or is this your very first time? Or do you know a
So
little?
Moana did guide me through a little bit. That's when we met, and she started telling me what it is, and I was so intrigued. So I do know a little bit. Like, I mean, I know that I'm the manifesting generator and some of it, but I don't know most of it. No.
Well, if this is your chart, we just have to sort of correct one thing. You're not a manifesting generator, you're a generator.
Oh, generator? Okay. I thought the
This is
manifesting
why,
generator.
well, there's a huge key. The manifesting generator is a little bit like squirrel squirrel is always just going here and there, and it skips steps, like remembering where it put all its nuts, for instance. Um, and so manifesting generators do that too. So always sort of skipping steps, pushing ahead, skipping lots of steps. When you skip steps, it's mostly through struggle, but and you can go level by level to get through each little thing when needed. And you can slow down. When you need to, you can slow down a little bit easier. Is that true?
That's true. But I do tend to hop from one thing to the other a lot as
Well, yeah, you're a generator. We all have that. It's baked in. It's in the conditioning. So would you say you know enough about your generative type and the strategy that you started to see that your awareness is gained through the act of waiting to respond? Have you seen any of that?
definitely.
Okay, which means
Definitely.
now the response can only happen in that one place that is the now, neither before or after. So it's really cool. So this is the way of the generator, and what you're looking at this chart, it's incredible because it's loaded with activity. Um, you're especially attuned for breath work like this because every single center in your body graph is touched by a black line or more, one or more, meaning you're aware of all of your things. You've got gates in every center. So this brings you in tune with so many things that you do. I just love that you do what you do. I'm still sort of blown away by it. So,
Wow.
do you have any questions about your design?
I do. I have a lot. I don't even know where to start. So I was hoping that you can like start telling me about it more, and then I would kind of like
I will, but has anything, just that the first thing that comes to mind?
it's just it seems a lot.
Okay.
And I've always thought that I'm too much and extra. So I wonder if this had anything to do
There you go.
with
So this good, because this is the conditioning. The whole idea of this body graph is for you to basically, and all of us, to decondition. And it takes about 7 years fully, and it takes about a few months to see that you need to have it, or even sometimes a day. But it takes 7 years to finish deconditioning, and the deconditioning starts to pull you away from that sense that you ever have that you're too much or anything of the like. I was watching what is almost too much in a breath work thing that you were just doing minutes ago, and it was too much. It's so much, but it's no such thing as too much when people need it. And this is basically your way. This cross that you're on is about tension. It's about tension, and this right angle cross of tension it's literally there to think of tension, this cross of tension that you're on, a lot like a piano string. A piano string has to have lots of tension in order to make its music, and its music only comes over time through depth. And there's where this feeling of too much comes through. Your body graph has a guaranteed unconscious, not self trip called fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of too muchness. It's there in gate number 48 on your chart. 48 is part of your incarnation cross. It's unconscious. It's off the spleen on the left-hand side, the farthest gate out. I don't know if you see it there. And it's red. It's pointing at the throat. And it sits there as part of your cross. This incarnation cross it bears what the name says. When you incarnate, this is a cross that's etched into, you're intrinsically tied into what it brings you to. Tension keeps bringing you to new music. No new music, no filling your spirit. So this has been and music, music I'm using as a metaphor, your music, whatever that is. Of course you knew that. Does that sound familiar? This tension? Okay. Does it deeply sound familiar? Tension.
Sometimes it scares, especially the whole tension.
Yes, because the tension is scary. The tension is just downright scary. And because your conscious personality is in tune with every single center in your body graph in one way, shape, or form, the tension is felt everywhere. So my guess is you can't always localize where that tension is, other than it congregates in your throat a lot.
And my right shoulder, my right arm.
Lymph. Right off the throat.
Yeah.
Right off the throat. So yeah, that's your open throat center. There's one open center in your body graph, that open box in the center, the throat center.
Yeah.
And as we grow up, our parents accidentally take us away from our nature. It's a big problem. We don't know we're doing it. We've done it. I did it to my children until I tried to stop. When I first found out, I'd already done it for like 12 years. So oops. But now that we know, we got to get to the kids. But there's a not self theme that's baked into us through our open centers most profoundly. And the open center, called the throat center, is what wants to manifest and articulate and engage and do and get out in front. And get out in front, not necessarily to beat other people, but sometimes it is, and that's okay. Sometimes you've gotten into it simply to beat the other person. Is that true?
Sorry again?
Sometimes you've gotten into a thing simply to beat the other person. This was in your younger years, at least up through till the 30s.
Very reactive, yes.
It's like, oh yeah, bam, and that back comes you. Right, okay, yeah. So that makes sense, because this open throat is starving for attention. And it also at the same time recognizes that there's tons of attention, and sometimes it's too much. So sometimes it shuts up. Sometimes it nervously talks too much. Sometimes it keeps trying to decide what to do, when to articulate, even like what to do with your hands when you're sitting still or whatever, talking to someone. Does all that sound familiar?
Very much.
Okay, so that's who you're not. That's who you're not. So there's a mantra in human design. Every single time we come across one of these moments and you listen to it again, next time with your pen and paper, when you watch this back, you have to watch this back. You will write this down. Oh, that's who I'm not. Write down whatever it was I just said. I can't say it again. I probably can, but whatever. I'm in a flow. So whatever I said, write it down, and you'll be like, oh, this is who I'm not. You are not the seeker of attention. You are simply the attention or not. And it can only come on a generator's timing, in the now, in response. And the response you'll always notice, because the generative life force gives us a chemistry. It guarantees we'll like it. It guarantees we'll be lit up. Listen, you're in tune with all this stuff. How many muscles in our face? It takes how many to smile and how many to frown, right? It's our face basically speaks the words that we're saying pretty effectively. If you think about it, it's like the embouchure of a complicated instrument. And it's there to simply articulate in a timing according to the sacral. Sacral has the energy and it feels amazing. It feels so good. And then suddenly you can't tell. It's somehow a little disorganized, trying. It's the difference between not trying, and it just happened naturally, and trying. it's going to be hard to tease out at first sometimes, but if you have a generator form like you do, there is a constant energy waiting to be in tune with what the little kid was in tune with. The little kid was in tune with, unless it was impacted by outside forces that made it be afraid for its existence. Short of that, the inner kid was very often and most often in tune to, it just did whatever was next because it loved it. Or it was seeking that it was going to love it or not. And if it didn't love it, it stopped and did the next thing, and until it loved it again, until its body's energy was excited, ripping through things, gaining its depth, investigating all the little nuggets, trying this, trying that, not wanting to get in trouble for trying stuff, not even thinking about trouble for trying this and trying that. Remember that child that you just asked us to tell I love you to? I was almost in tears in that moment. I was like, oh, this gal, this, what the hell did she do to me? Um, so that inner kid is always right because it tells you, I love this. The energy's there. The response in the moment is, uh-huh. It's digging a hole. It's moving over to the blades of grass. It's hurt its friend, so it's going to run over there. Each thing is a response, no different than a dog or a cat or everything else, basically. It is simply a response that is energized by the chemistry of the body. And the body's chemistry is so aware, we had to give it a definition on the left-hand side called the design. The design means the body, the personality means the mind in its whole essence, part of which is tapped into the rest of the universe. And the body's intelligence is aware. If we could only give it lips and vocal cords, it would talk just like we do, with lots of words. It's aware, it's conscious, it's a dual consciousness. So inside this body of yours comes this incredible responsive nature, and you see it all the time. But it's riddled with nervousness, open throat, shoulders tense. What do I say? You know what I mean? So even to this day, so let's see, you were born in what, 1980?
Yeah.
Yeah.
January 1st, 1980.
So that makes you going on 44 or something, 45, something like that.
45,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So you're totally in college. 40 to 50 is, we are hardcore in good college, not woke college. And we're killing it. And we're watching ourselves grow. And we really start to flower from here, just sort of like whatever it was you
I
just did.
honestly feel it's the best time of my life. My son asked me the other day, well,
Sure.
Mommy, if you can go back to any age, what age would you go? I'm like, no age. Because don't you want to be younger? I'm like, no, I love who I am today.
Well, I got news for you. Every time someone asks me that question, I just caveat it with, as long as I can have everything I got now in my head and bring it back with me,
I know, but we
or,
can't.
then yeah, 18. No, 7. Take me back to 7. So this generative form has a response. It tells us what's true just as surely as the conscious mind can measure something and add 2 plus 2 and tell us it's true that that'll be 4 inches, not 2 inches. The conscious mind does that and gives us truth that way. That's the only way it can give us truth, is in the conscious measurement, juxtaposition, answer, something, whatever it is. But the body doesn't go through that process. The body is the other consciousness that says, I'm conscious, I'm aware, I know exactly what's best for this totality of this physical being, this package walking around. And if I'm a generator, then I know it so well that I don't even need to know it. My generative form through my sacral simply responds, I can't tell. Yeah, no, maybe, I don't know yet. It's always doing that. The I don't know and the maybe is the difference between not yes or not no yet. It's just neither yes or no, or and Have you noticed in your life this incredible, perpetual, in the moment point where suddenly you recognize your perfect form knew exactly what to do, but it only knew as a response? And you recognized my mind had nothing to do with my perfection navigating that moment. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
This is a design to see it all the time and then to think about it over and over again. or in different ways.
I can definitely like see myself watching this all over again tomorrow.
Yeah. So you'll point to times in your life, and there's hundreds of them. They show up in little mundane ways. They don't have to be a big thing. They could simply be, a decision on what to purchase, at a store for groceries or something, and you realize later, it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad I got this one thing. And then you'll go back to the moment, you'll remember the moment you got that one thing that you didn't have on the list or something, and you realize sacral did that. Mind came in after and said, oh yeah, maybe this is a good idea. Let me measure how much it costs. But sacral moved. And the difference between the sacral truth as a responder, I'm a generator, we're responders, we're dumb as rocks until we're in response and orient our life in response and orient everything to be the Buddha that waits. And in the waiting, the recognition that you need not wait long when you're a generator and you have a life force that guarantees an open, enveloping aura that brings things in slowly. Everything always comes into the generator. I would say to you, you've noticed this in your life, but you may have only noticed it tentatively, such that you're not sure if you believe it yet, because it doesn't always happen that way, because our not self disorganizes that, but we are always pulling things in. Knowing that is to suddenly know the way to differentiate how this responder is going to speak with the seer, the mind that is who we think we are. We think we are this measuring mind, and the speaker of the words that you just did, and the knower of all the techniques that you would go through. But deep down, you know there's a body intuition that happens at the speed of lightning. Because the mind process is a process that's slow by comparison, right? It's always slow. It takes a second or two to kick up. But the response is totally true all the time. Back to the kid. The kid is always right. And the kid is screaming from the red design sides of our body to us generator adults saying, dude, listen up. I keep giving you, this feels great. I'm lit up. Do the thing. Or this doesn't feel so good. I can't quite tell. No. Or I'm somewhere in between. Don't push me. You know, one of those two things, three things. And I want to demonstrate it to you. I want you to see it. I think I should deal with this open throat, because it'll be where so much of the sort of hung up part is. The part that made you so deep, by the way. You're designed for depth. So if the response is true, because it is the child, if it happens at nearly the speed of electricity, we'll call it, like lightning fast, and it's always speaking, and the mind takes a half a second or so, or an eighth of a second to kick in and start having nervousness that then re-electrifies and polarizes the body in all the wrong way. And that mind takes, again, half a second, we'll call it. I want you to put yourself in a responsive state while I ask you questions, so you can see the immediate versus the I struggle to speak and qualify and measure. Can you get a sense of what I'm asking you for right now?
Yeah.
Surrender, surrender into no think response. I'm just going to ask you about this open throat. Okay. So, have you noticed in your life sometimes you struggle with the timing to speak?
Yes.
Is this hard to admit?
But it's definitely true.
Notice your mind thinking all kinds of things that the kid wouldn't think in the moment right after your body said, yeah, it's hard sometimes, a little, I think it's hard, or not. The truth was right there. The mind started to qualify that. It's subtle. Did you see that?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a mechanic, and it's going to keep happening. This is what we want every generator to start looking at, because you need to see this tiny little nugget of space, because we've been missing it the whole time. It's so easy to miss. It's like a feather went by, huh? You just didn't notice it. And then it's gone, except for the ill effects it leaves behind in us. So have you been embarrassed by speaking too much?
Many times. I just
Right.
tend to keep digging on a subject, and
Did you suddenly find that you didn't know why you had all the energy for that? I think,
well, I do tend to hyperfixate on stuff.
well, that's normal. You got this channel of abstraction. It's perfect. you're supposed to hyperfixate. Essentially, that's what makes the tension start to come to the surface that we spoke about in the beginning. At times, do you notice that suddenly this thing can sing, this open throat of yours, that out of nowhere, not just sing notes, but the timing, when it shows up right, it feels good. When it shows up right, it feels good. And do you notice that you're at the edge often, waiting for the timing to engage? Like you're watching, it's like it's a thing. You have some stuff, and you're in an active process of like waiting to fall into saying something and or doing something. Have you noticed that?
Lately, more than ever.
Okay, that's who
Just
you're
more
not.
awareness. But lately, more than ever, I've been more aware of that.
More aware of it, right? This is a constant pressure. Look at it like a suffocation of the child within, like of sorts, a slight amount of that keeps building up over time to where it's not so much a slight amount anymore. That waiting for the timing is your mind thinking that I need to do something about all of this. Whereas the responder says, I'm just sitting here by the river waiting for the bodies of my dead enemies to float by. That's what, actually, that's a horrible analogy, but that's 4,000 years ago with Buddha or whatever. So that was their time. But still waiting by the river for the truth to flow by is the same analogy, and just watching it, because every moment of every day we're capable of the full weight and energy of our body falling into the response that then finds the right timing. Your right timing comes in waiting. It comes in waiting. So as you wait now in the future with all of these things that you see, this energy, you keep starting to watch and say, that's actually not my energy. That's energy my parents conditioned into me because they didn't ask me yes or no questions. They didn't know to keep enforcing, I will see my truth this way, so that as you mature, you will never let other people in life show you a truth a different way than what you already know, like right away, and intuitively can energize as what's true for you. And they just didn't know. They stopped asking us yes or no questions. So when I get into asking you this timing thing and this whole, it shows up in groups. The thing is, in groups, very often you're a chameleon. Do you notice that? Well, not groups not groups but groups in the beginning. Does that happen?
Yeah.
In the beginning, you're not the first most talker unless you're being addressed and it's something in your expertise.
True. That is true.
That's good. Just always surrender to that. That's how you operate. So don't let people tell you, my expertise ain't there yet, dude. I don't know. Maybe, that's so impresses you. You can't be put under pressure to speak, but you think you're always under pressure to speak. Do, speak, engage, say, have the right thing to say with the right force in the right way. Again, all of this sounds familiar, right? Can you speak to it at all? Because it's part of the depth that made you bring me into a deep place 10 minutes ago or however long ago it was. If this is part of that tension, I know as you work through it, that's brought you there. If this wasn't here and you didn't have this stuff going on, chances are you wouldn't be as deep as you are. And now let's align it all and get you seeing what you're not. So speak to it a little bit, if you can.
It's funny, as soon as you said speak to it a little bit, I felt that I couldn't.
Okay, don't. Yeah. Do you want to speak to it? Don't you hear sacral talking to you right now? It's saying no, maybe.
No.
Right. Is it hard to say no?
Yes.
Okay, notice how quick that was.
Yeah.
When you listen back, you'll hear your breath that you were just going over. You'll hear your generator sacral child.
I felt stuck from here to here, like.
Yeah, but in that last second when I said, well, I forgot the question I asked, you were like, yes, that was a sacral response. You'll see it. It's like, oh, it's instant. It was already there dripping out. I just had to let it out. Whereas everything else is I have to think and ponder it out.
100%.
100. Yes. So I just did it a couple more times so you can see that. And now I just want to put this throat part to rest so we can just talk about some other things. Now you can know the pressure for the timing to speak has nothing to do with anything you might care to prove, and it only disorganizes the tension in the room. And most importantly, it's who you're not. It's who you're not. The 4-year-old did not care about the pressure of its timing. It just blabbed on every time it had a new word, and it stopped blabbing when it stopped. The kid was perfect. And it only told itself the truth the younger and younger we get, you know what I mean? Until we get the sweet spot, 3, 4, 5. And by then, I want you to understand the depth, because this is right up your alley. With this cross of tension is all about the tension to gather and acquire depth. That's what it's about. This cross of tension is a giant funnel for depth that serves the collective ultimately. Your love of the collective, you know. And so, what was the thing I just said before that?
Just
I want to show you the thing that I
the
love.
The love of the collective.
Say it again.
The love of the collective.
So yeah, well, just this whole 48, I got lost in this whole 48 as a big purpose inside of your incarnation cross. You're here just acquiring the depth. You're here acquiring the depth is what's incredible. And to know that you are not the trying of the timing of when to speak and articulate and engage and show and whatever. You are the whimsical arbiter of that timing, as the same as a boat that would sail on the water. The boat is at the mercy of the water, and the boat captain does not the boat captain does not care. He knows, you know what I'm saying? The boat itself doesn't care. It knows, yeah, I'm on the water. That's what I'm here for. And I'm not in charge of the water. Open throat is not in charge of the timing. Open throat is the timing. Yeah. And so you'll start to see those words become truth over time as you keep looking at this. Does any of this raise any questions? Because there would have been parts in your life where there's lots of little hang-ups, things we call trauma or this or whatever, you know, held on to burdens and stuff like that.
There's a lot from childhood to adulthood, right?
Yep.
I don't know why it feels like very heavy listening to some of these things.
Because it is. There's no easy way around this. We only let people on that are already doing lots of self-work, and you know what I mean? Yeah, and just in love, and just know that love is the way, and are ready for that movement one way or another. And that's you. I mean, it was so obvious. So it should be a little bit, let it be heavy. You're designed to read everything as heavy anyways. That's half of what tension is. So the human design body graph is a diagnostic tool. It reaches into our genome and tells us through what I call magic. I just love it. This body graph is amazing because it pinpoints specifically that this genetic feature in our body is turned on, and now we can keynote it with the words of what it means as it vibrates up to the surface and becomes all these characters and characteristics and our way, and it becomes all of our behavior, and it becomes us. That's what the us that we see as us is the product of the diagnostic tool you're looking at, of all its little features bubbling away, coming up to the surface. So this should be on every, I say this every episode, it should be on every driver's license. It should be on, right? It should be on your, whatever, your school.
It's funny, a part of me wanted me to have this little like image with me.
You should get it
yeah,
on your
to refer to it every time.
Yep. So each of these activations, you have about 20 of them approximately, does stuff for us. And wherever there's a channel in your body graph, a channel is where 2 gates are activated. Activated means they're colored in. They're red, black, or striped. So go to the top where you see the yellow triangle pointing up. That's the head center. And the ajna is the green center pointing down. This is the head center, pressures us, pineal gland, giant antenna out into the all of it all, right? And it's always pressuring us to translate our existence. It's an actual pressure to translate what the hell about our existence. And you're constantly translating what the heck about your dang existence? You're lost in confusion about it all, with fanciful, colorful moments over and over again throughout your life of sudden clarity, incredible clarity. The confusion leaves, and the oppressiveness of that just turns into aha. And it feels like a breakthrough that you're almost desperate to tell people. You know what I mean? At times.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
it's fun. Now you can watch that process and be like, oh my God, you can actually watch yourself being yourself. And you can say, oh my God, I'm desperate to freaking get this. This is so good. I just figured it out. The timing and the power, and you suddenly will say, I demand your attention. I just figured this out. Or it'll just shut up for a little bit while it still doesn't know if it's the right timing. Sometimes you will manifest, like we all do, over and over again as a response. The response turns, it's so fast, it turns into manifestation, only related to the response itself. So in that moment, you have them all the time. This mind of yours never shuts off. You're constantly daydreaming. That's what this chart says about the top part of this body graph with these 4 gates in your body graph, the way it's designed there in this top part. And it says that I daydream. I am
It's
constantly
exhausting
walking.
though.
Say it again.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting when you care. When you stop caring that you're doing it, it becomes the greatest problem solver on the planet. Essentially, this thing solves problems like no other. This configuration, because gate 43 off the bottom of your ajna guarantees that you have insights and little breakthroughs, and they're unique and they're freaky sometimes. They're so unique, and they only show up independent of your will. They don't show up upon your will. You can't manifest or, make the uniqueness pour out in thought. It shows up in thought. Does that sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever tried to sit down and be creative on purpose?
Sure, I have, yeah.
And sometimes we can if it's something we're already got ongoing.
But
It's not so easy though. Take a blank canvas and be an artist. You know what I mean? It's unless you're already in it, that's not always so easy until a mutative moment where it is.
Yeah.
And that's what this gate 43 at the bottom of this does. And it's pointing right at the throat, the only open center in your body graph. So it longs to physically bridge the gap below it and get to the throat to basically manifest this incredible new insight. Most of your lack of timing that you think is like you can't tell and keeps you on edge, like we described, that thing that you are not. Lots of that is the product of this that feels like confusion that keeps coming to varying degrees of clarity, like in a moment that feels like a breakthrough that almost wants to claw its way out. Does that sound okay?
The confusion that turns into clarity is so right on.
How does that feel for you? What's that like on a daily basis? Because it never turns off.
Again, it's exhausting, but it's rewarding at the same time.
Describe what's exhausting about it.
Overthinking when the confusion comes on.
Mhm.
I tend to, I used to more in the past than now, but obsess about certain things.
Mhm.
But then now I find that many times I just, instead of going on, I don't know, 10 days to 10 years about something, all of a sudden, like a few
Fear of the
days, I'm like,
future. Fear of what it will do. Fear of what it will do. That's what you're just saying. That's in the Sun Earth transiting us right now, and it's in your body graph, gate 57 and gate 48 off the top of the spleen. Again, both of them are unconscious, so they just happen. You don't have super conscious touch with them until they're happening. And that's what seems scary. Oh my God, this thing's happening to me. Oh my God, this thing is happening to me. That's what it feels like. Does that sound familiar? It's like, why is this thing showing up happening to me? Does that
yeah.
you
But then I do find that I snap into, like, there's been a lot of shifting and a lot of awareness all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden I'm at so much ease, so much
right,
easier than I used to be.
easier on yourself? What happens is you come to the awareness that tomorrow doesn't matter. I'm a responder. I must simply respond. And the confusion process that turns into clarity, for me, it's called abstraction. That's constantly mired in any type of thought, but the abstraction will put any two things together. It doesn't matter. It'll put any combination of things in an abstract way and start to make sense out of even the most confusing things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it never wants to stop. So it becomes our job to recognize when we're called into it, when we feel called into it in such a way that we love it and our energy feels good, versus when it didn't matter. And you can tell when it didn't matter so much, where meaning it just had to keep its process going, not having you obsess over fearing it. Think about all these obsessivenesses. We all have them. And it's like, I think I would, get too much. Overthinking was the word you used. And it's not overthinking. It's overpaying attention to the thinking. Think about
True.
that. Yeah.
And like you
Actually,
said, once you don't care anymore.
or what happens is you start to care less.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to, you age and refine your process of realizing I don't care nearly as much about that. I don't care. And there it is. All of it still comes back to the generator in you, this beautiful generator that has this responsive truth. Think of how good the 4-year-old feels when it's unencumbered, no one's trying to influence it, and it is just off and running with whatever the exciting moment is. At 4, everything's a trip, right? Everything's about the coolest thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
So that what would take that kid off action? Nothing. It's right on its perfect self. We need
The child doesn't overthink. The child doesn't.
the child simply is the child, just like you are the openness and the definition. And so in that perfectness, because remember the rule of law, the axiom or the maxim of law says the kid is always right. And you have to start seeing that the kid is just always right. That kid felt like $1,000,000 when it was doing something it wanted. And when the parents tried to take it off its track, it felt exactly not that. Or when it got frustrated with the thing because it couldn't make something work, it finally was not excited. It knew the difference. It totally knew the difference, and it totally moved away from things that were frustrating and measured them and saw them and then discarded them and moved towards the things that felt like $1,000,000. As soon as the pressure of this is a pressure center after all, it's total pressure up there. Nothing but mental pressure to translate existence. Keep thinking, kid. That's what the universe has asked of you at the time you were minted like a coin upon birth, by the planetary system above us. And in that moment that was happening, this thinking process becomes, if it doesn't feel good, you're right. Move away. If it does feel good, you'll get engaged. You'll sit there and start pondering. You realize that you can literally burn as many calories in a day sitting still with that mind ears going and exhaust yourself with the greatest thing. Right?
Right on.
Are you married or
Divorced.
okay? No, I was just gonna say I was gonna make a husband joke, but I probably shouldn't then. Just significant others notice these things. And if they
Yes,
hold them
they do.
against the other, what they're doing is they're harming that person when they hold it against them. All the crazy little things that we are, human design helps show us how to see how helpless we are, but to be it, so we can stop being so the other guy, they're helpless, even if they're sort of a tool about it. It's like, I get it. You can't help it. And we get this amazing grace that does what you asked of us when you were talking. Tell the kid everything's going to be okay. Assure them. And we wouldn't want to tell that kid a lie. Everything is going to be okay as soon as we start listening to its guidance. Guidance tells us truth, not true. True, energy for it. Not true, I got 50% or less energy for this thing. Even though you might be doing it, but you still got crappy energy for it. It's just so simple that almost only a child can understand it, is the point. And so that kid is always right. Put this in your generator form and we add this confusion, then you start to see that, yeah, you struggle. Yes, there is lots of tension in all of this. Yeah, you even shut up, so sometimes you don't even pull the beauty that tension brings us in that musical piano string onto the plane. But it's there. It's there in your mental capacity to keep thinking. Do you dream in color?
Sorry?
Do you dream in color?
I do. I think I do. Yeah.
You do. You do. Um,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I want to tell you that just ever since I've been doing the inner child work many times and during the day, during situations, I actually helped myself come out of eating disorders by being able to connect back to the inner child and ask my little young Effie, what do you need right now? What are you missing? What are you feeling right now that is getting you to go and need to binge? And being able to connect back to the inner child has helped me tremendously in so many ways in my life.
Watch how the inner child would like to use the back end of the pencil called the eraser to basically erase almost everything. It does not want to care beyond a few moments about any trauma, loss, perception. It does not want to care about any of it. It only wants to care about its movement towards joy and abundance. And that's the human spirit. That's where we're all supposed to be. Doesn't mean we don't have moments of sadness and wanting to kick things and whatever and all the stuff. We're supposed to have all of that. It's just that our awareness is supposed to be aware, yeah, but I am abundant. It's supposed to
Mhm.
like know that offhand, like like easily, like not having to fake that it knows it, but just it knows it. And that's what the kid knew. So this is all conditioning again that our parents gave us. From age 0 to 3, everything was a question. Is the baby okay? Are you hungry? Do you need a kiss? Did you get a boo-boo? Whatever, right? You want to ride your bike, your friends, you want all those things. By the time we reached 4, 5, and 6, they started telling us accidentally more things than they asked of us. So, or whatever that ratio was, it started to ratio away. And that one stupid little thing disorganized us generators, along with everything else, by the way. The marketing, the advertising, the manifesting conditioning, it's all of that. But it was really primarily this one aspect, the movement from strictly asking and abiding by, not just asking, but abiding by, from that to telling us. So,
Wow.
oops,
I do
oopsie.
have a question though. I wonder if in any way on my human design chart, is there anything that is related or that you see? I was born with actually I wasn't born with a disability, but during my birth, I had my right shoulder completely had to be pulled out and dislocated.
Mhm,
I I have a condition that is called Erb's palsy. So my right arm is significantly smaller and isn't functioning as well as my left.
mhm.
Just wondering if that is in something in any way that is.
No, other than the alignment with your strategy and authority is what guarantees that whatever that injury in you is really supposed to operate like is gonna now to get in tune. Just again, we'll picture it like the perfection of the kid. If the kid had that little injury, it would sort of know how to favor it in order for it to mend or do whatever or to live with it. It would learn, and that's strategy and authority is the biggest key for everyone as it relates to anything in the body, all of it, even things that are outside of your control, like that. It's not a birth defect. It's just the way the cookie crumbled that time, because every birth is hard. Both my children, when they were born, I was like, what? Does it put itself back into shape? You know what I mean? Because it's not like that. It's uncommon. Like it never.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to speak to the eating thing because you're the great feeder of people when they allow it. And then the great either binger or stayer away from the food. You do one or the other.
Yeah.
This is,
I was also a caterer for 15 years.
see, yeah, so the
I
channel of
closed
community,
my catering business too.
yeah, this channel of community that's 3740 in your body graph. It goes from the ego, it defines your ego, and it goes down to the solar plex. This channel of community and all this ego activation is the 21 needs to control its surroundings. The 26 wants to spit out the word. It wants to transmit a message, and it's got this beautiful ego that can roar. It loves to roar when the timing is right. By the way, you don't brag enough. When I say brag, it's like you're wicked important and you're wicked powerful. And so every time you do something really good, you got to get used to patting yourself on the back in an egolicious way, a 9-centered egolicious way instead of delicious. I just made that up. Way that feels good to you and gets rid of that conditioning that the spiritual would put on us, that ego is bad. Every time your ego roars, it's supposed to be good for everyone else, serendipitously, one way, shape, or form, because it's as yourself. It's not about bragging and making other people feel bad. That's the ugly ego, that we see. But that's not us anymore. You're familiar, I assume, with the 7-centered chakra system, right?
Yes.
Well, look up the center of this body graph. If you include that ego, there's 7 centers there. The old chakra centers, the old chakra system from the Hindu Brahmins is encoded inside this enhanced form because now there's 9 centers. If you just look at it, it looks like it's spread out, the whole body graph, our awareness with it, to embody less of a yang, straight line, and more of a yin, something filled out. Do you see that? Meaning right up the center would be the yang, the 7-centered. And then when you add in the 2 brown centers on the left, it's as if we added the yin and space. It's basically space to grow life, right? Many other things. And that's what's happening in our species. Our 9-centered form is designed to know how to commune with one another throughout the whole planet, and quite easily, like literally. Our programming is simply, if the forces that are such losers would allow it and facilitate it, we would be there, the whole planet. Wouldn't hardly a care in the world about power and so forth, like not much. And this ego center of yours that I'm talking about has all of these powers in it that want to feel good about having provided something and loves to do the work, and the catering only ever felt good until the people didn't appreciate you. And when you were appreciated, you go the extra distance. Where's the generator? She's still here. It's past midnight. I know, but they love me and they're loving it, and and the tips are good, hopefully as well. But you have the energy for it. You know those times. You know, actually, as a caterer, you know those rooms. When the room sucked, your energy went down with it. Is that true?
Yes, very much.
None of these things are a mental concept or a mental construct. Each mechanic and the confusion and the working it out and the dying to break through and the waiting for the timing and the feeling good or not and the tension that brings depth, all of these things are born from the intelligence of our chemistry as a whole. Do you want me to say that again?
Yes, please.
All of these things are born from our chemistry as a whole, this holistic unit, including the brain, every last thing, our hair, all of it, is what gives us the initial wisdom that is the truth. It speaks, it's intelligent, and it's so intelligent that when the mind picks it up, it can translate it into pictures and images and words and books and movies and poems and music and conversation and on and on and on. Our favorite thing in the world, to commune, at our pace. So moving on to the eating thing, not only did you feed people, you would have these incredible up and down. I'm looking at your emotional definition. So just to prepare you, you defined emotionally 3 separate times, and that's a huge deal in a generator form. That is the 1955, which goes from the root center down at the bottom, and it goes up to the right to the gate 55, the gate of spirit and abundance. And the feeling of abundance, or the feeling of the lack of abundance, which has been the roller coaster ride of your life, essentially, because your mind would grab a hold of that and be confused and feel oppressed, and then not know the right timing, and then think it had to do something in order to cure the melancholy and the sadness of the emptiness. Gate 55 speaks to emptiness, or not. Is that hard to hear? It
It's
isn't, is
very
it?
hard. No, it is very hard to hear.
But in
There's
a
a lot
way,
of things about the past that are hard to hear. It's just bringing it back all over again.
good, because you don't want to have to care about any of it. This melancholy was simply a chemistry to guarantee you got smarter.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it was. ever. And because we're generators and we have this sort of dumb as rocks starting way, which just says, I don't know until I'm in response, beautifully dumb as rocks. I should pick that's a guy way of saying it, but I mean, it is gorgeous in its innocence. It's innocence. That's what it is. In its generative innocence, it doesn't know until it's responding. And our mind tortures our body and it says, but I need to know. I need to stop this confusion. I need to break through this idea. I need to get this insight into action. No can do. That's not your job. Your job is to be the right timing when everything suddenly falls into action. Your voice your voice never lost track of the timing of what to say when you're in the middle of a busy catering and you're the boss. Because you're the king of that freaking thing. You know what I mean? And everyone looks to you, period. You're the authority, period. And now that tension is playing some pretty fine music on all those tension strings of the piano. And now it's gorgeous because you tensed it all into one bridge. And boom, now it plays. You're always the player of the depth. That's why I keep going to it. The struggle through the purpose, the provoking of the life, the feeling of the spirit that goes up and down through hope and pain. And it comes back to, I want to fill this. I want to fill it up again. I keep filling up my depth. You'll know your depth is right when you stop struggling to care about the stuff the 4-year-old would like you to contract with them in as much as to forget about it. When I say forget about it, relegate it is the better word. Relegate, take it. You can't forget. You can't forget. Mind never forgets. It's perfect that way. But relegate it. Practice relegating it. Hear yourself say, I don't think I even want to care about this. Let this, I don't think I even want to care about this thing be a mantra that just comes out like as a knee-jerk reaction. So practice it maybe even in a mirror a couple times.
Sometimes I just literally imagine that I'm pulling a thought from my head, like physically, just removing it. It doesn't serve me. It's not who I am. It doesn't belong to me.
A beautiful little action shows up that helps accentuate the mantra, the words we just said, because honey, these words are spells, that I thought that was a joke the first time someone told me that. And I was like, oh, come on, that's not true. We are constantly spelling and wording our existence. It's the words and the spelling and the spells literally manifest the existence. They're at the beginning of it. But you have and here's you under all this pressure, meaning the pressure is there and you just sort of live with it to manifest through an emotional lens. The next definition you have, so just to finish that, 39 and 55 is a design of moving through moods up, moods down, all things mood. And look at mood as if it were a hyper rainbow with every little shade of possible color from the deep purple up to the dark red and through the whole rainbow. Picture moods as that. All these different colors, all 10 trillion of them. And here you are moving through all of these moods. You're designed to move through them. And what if you were a kid and your mom knew to tell you, it was a little bit like RoboCop's eye. I was just scanning back and forth, waiting to get more intelligent. It's a lot like it's looking at mood's movement. And in the movement of that mood up and down, the little kid kept coming to the new understanding of things, the new sort of realization that would start to make sense, the making sense of things to where it's like it gets pretty clear. And it kept doing this in 2-minute increments and 5-minute increments, right? The kid did, because the kid lived in kid years, dog years in a way. Now we as adults, it takes much longer. And it's emotional wave that guarantees that chemistry brings you down into sadness, despair, overeating, undereating, self-destructiveness, stupid, just going within, staying there too long, thinking you're there too long, not knowing if you're there too long. Have you noticed every one of these moments you've gone down, you come back up? When have you noticed? What's that all about? Why is that?
I've always had this mantra that like I've been dropped down, or I've dropped myself so many times, but I always get it back up. I've always lifted my head above the water again and again and again and again and again.
Now the mantra helps your brain have the words to be able to tell me what you just told me, right? The personality consciousness, this thing that rides along with us, that sees and experiences the life. But it's still the chemistry that's doing that. And so God doesn't make any mistakes, is the way I like to say it. So that means the chemistry is perfect. Every time you go down, it guarantees you become more emotionally intelligent, more emotionally aware, resilient, able to share that and empower others, able to watch how mood will propel you to rest and then to get back out again. And you can actually watch it and obey it like road signs. And that it's such an intense chemistry that it's like you just have to realize it is just chemistry, no different than, you know, women always understand this. You know, you guys started a monthly cycle when you were young teens, right? You know, if young girl did it nervous, you figure it out. A few months later, you're an old pro at it, right? That's because you got used to the chemistry and because people made you aware. Now I'm making you aware of this chemistry. It's got a long arc on it sometimes, like it can take days and weeks for a thing to go. But as soon as the new mantra starts coming in, as soon as the melancholy and the sadness hits, you see it coming, is the point of all this. It's like, oh my God, I'm starting to go down. I can't tell. The confusion factory goes to work. You can't tell if you're in the right timing with things. Suddenly you start to fear the inadequacy of moments. That's not true and it's not you. Caution comes in. You don't talk, you don't lead, you don't influence, you don't break through, and down you go. Every time that happened, you'd be like, oh my God, I've neglected something and I'm about to get so much more intelligent than I ever could have had I not had this process. And you're in that college time between 40 and 50 that it won't take you but a couple of months from now to see that, oh my God, I am riding this thing, even though I don't fully understand it yet. And then a few months after that, you'll come to so much more clarity. It guarantees you go through a human awareness process called emotional clarity. We have awareness in us, right? Our mind is aware that it measures and says stuff, right? We have a mind. We know that we're aware that we can figure stuff out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mental stuff, and we can hold on to memory over all of time. We're aware. We can juxtapose concepts and all this stuff. That's an awareness. You know, the fish doesn't have that. I'm pretty sure most birds don't have mostly that. And I don't know any animals except us that got it the way we got it. I mean, we got it in spades. Okay, it's unique. It's a thing. It's an awareness. We also have this immediate awareness, right? That thing that makes us survive. Duck, jump, kill it, run. You know what I mean? Swerve, stop. Right? This immediate splenic awareness. I'm sick. Let me do all these things for myself. And it just becomes aware of its survival. That's the spleen down here where she's showing. But this is the third awareness. And the reason your life is so richly complicated towards the good, the more you allow it, richly complicated towards the good, by the way. That's meant to sound sexy over time. It is richly complicated towards the good. Yeah, that you'll see is that ultimately this third awareness, you have all three awarenesses defined. There's only three, you got them all. This is, no, I'm a longer slope. The monkey mind works all the time. It holds on to things over all of time, but it doesn't know what the hell it's doing. Sometimes it figures shit out. Boom. The spleen on the left that says, hey, I'll do this, I'll do that. I'm a perfected form. I feel fear. I don't feel fear. Fear makes me intelligent. Da 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 da. I survive. And an emotional intelligence that gives us the juice. Hey, I'm pretty clear on what it's all for. It gives us you're a struggler and a fighter for purpose. Even though you don't have a gate 28, it doesn't matter. This 38 and 39 in the first line on the right-hand side of your personality, of your incarnation cross says, I struggle, I fight, I provoke, I go in, and sometimes I go back out, whatever it takes to provoke the spirit and know I fight for a purpose, struggle, fight, move, maneuver. Basically, 38-1 guarantees you stubbornly hold a position that does not relinquish its own self to the other. That's what 38 does, and it becomes even deaf to the other. Gate 38 is off the bottom of your spleen, by the way, and it's part of your incarnation cross. It guarantees that you're like a fighter for your own purpose. That you don't mind the struggle so much, and you don't mind coming out swinging. I'm using fighter analogies, but it's not swinging literally. It's like at the subject matter, at the at this piece of my life. Let's come out. Let's kill this thing. Let's do it. Let's do something. That's what 38's dying to do. And in the book, 38 line 1 is called qualification, this tempering of opposition. Because 38 is also called not just the fighter, but the gate of opposition. So sometimes people say something and you oppose that.
Yes.
You oppose tons of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So are you currently have a boyfriend or anyone in your life currently, a little bit, a lot of it, not anything like that yet?
No.
Okay, so now you get to start to know your checklist to qualify whoever's next, right? I'm not even kidding. You make them measure up. It's like, well, I'm sort of like this. I'm going to see if you like that.
It just ended, so yeah, like it's.
Yeah, he didn't know that he had to like certain things. You didn't know stuff about him. Suddenly you start to not care, and then it just fizzles out like every relationship. But until we enter into them as ourselves, and then they never fizzle out quite the same or at all. So, but back to this emotion. So here's the struggler, the fighter, the person that brings a form of obstruction and a form of opposition to the plane. It has to bring it. And it brings it empathetically. It's not like you just come out swinging at everybody, but as a responder, as a generator, it's in response. Out comes the fighter and the person that is going to both oppose and provoke at the same time. And your sense of provocation comes through inaction. What happened to Effie? She stopped. We don't know. She's not saying anything. It's literally the type of obstruction that just won't engage. But it sort of knows the timing and it gets ready to re-engage. It's always working between no, okay, yeah, no, yeah, okay. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, I notice you're smiling at that one. That's funny.
It's hearing a lot of things about yourself, and it's opening your eyes even more. And I've already been.
Yeah, there can be no judgment on all this. All this stuff is perfect.
No, yeah.
All the stuff that we think sucks, like 99.9% of it really doesn't. It's actually just fine. It's just fine. You'll see over time that most stuff just ends up not mattering. In relationships, especially. That's what it'll be. You'll suddenly have an ease with a thing, and whatever annoyed you before just annoys you less.
Yes.
It didn't matter next
You
to
don't care as much.
Say it again.
You don't care as much.
Right. Back to this emotional wave, though, so we can, because I want to sort of conclude this with this emotional wave. I could talk about so many other things, but I want you to you now understand you've got to spot the gap between the truth from the kid and the delay into the mind, who is who you're not. Your mind never knows what's true. We've learned that. We've learned a couple other things. I was pointing out the throat. I said a bunch of profound things about the throat. You'll go back and see. I pointed out your ego willpower. We love this thing. And I pointed out this abstraction process that breaks through in your mind. Back to the emotional thing. Since it's defined 3 separate ways, you have 3 separate waves. You have a wave that goes up and down, that spikes. It just suddenly shows up great, and it suddenly shows up down. And then you have an emotional wave process that ratchets a little bit depending upon the support or not and the sensitivity or not of the other. Very much related to the other. And yes, those are times when you can say it's their fault. It's really not. It's still your emotional wave. But in communion, you can talk that through more intelligently, like awake people, when that happens. But it ratchets until it finally blows up. Or it ratchets until it finally makes sense of the thing enough to have a clarity that it's not going to blow up at that. It's just not going to do it anymore. No go, not going to do it. Or this is great. I'm clear. No, I love this. I'm here. I'm in. 1, 2, 3, go. That would be you on the lighter side of the nicer side of that. So what ends up happening is with 3 different waves, knowing that the emotional solar plexus is an awareness that can only come to clarity through the act of sadness and melancholy. So I guess I should just put a fine point on that. The clarity only comes through the descent into sadness. Key words for it are
I love
sadness, despair, melancholy, lowness, and down. And again, the child would have just understood it as I don't feel good, I'm down, you know, but it doesn't stay there very long because its little generative self constantly pushed it towards its joy. Its joy is simply that which lights you up and you're satisfied with. It feels a deep satisfaction. You love it. That's our way. The generative way is to like, yeah, we freaking love it. And so we do it. Then you have the energy until you sap that energy by not recognizing that to go down is not only mandatory, but you were born with it. You can't help it. It will always be there. And it's wicked freaking sexy when it comes back up. And everyone wants to be around it. And you're always able to break through the aura of the other. And half the time, if you go out into the world, which you apparently need to get out, you're a triple split, so you need to go out in the world a ton just to go here and there. And wherever you go, there's always some boy staring at you somewhere that you got to shoo them off because of all this emotional, supportive, seductive definition. The emotional solar plexus is where the love affair takes flight. It could never have happened in the mind, and the spleen doesn't even know. It's just survival. The emotional solar plex gives humanity the awareness to write a love novel and or to read it and to do what you did. It's constantly pushing us towards the realization that we're clear that love is the only way. So let's get about the business of being that. I mean, that really answers everything. And so, but that's a very profound clarity to come to. We ask a lot of humanity to get there. And the only way to get there is to understand this way, live it out. Hope to pain and back again. On the upside of your wave, when you're feeling good, you're out in the world more, you are intoxicating in your own way. People do like to be around you, so much so that you don't even know why half the time, by the way. You're like, oh, come on, man, maybe, because you're a right angle person, so you're still totally self-absorbed. Agree to make a deal with yourself that you are a self-absorbed generator and you're supposed to be. It doesn't mean you're bad or selfish or rude. It just means you're not always listening because you're busy with yourself. That's us generators. That's what we do. And you're supposed to be that way. So going through hope and pain and letting it be an experiment that you watch it and it sows. And sometimes it's a little bit, right? Sometimes it'll just be like a little bit, and sometimes it's a medium amount. Sometimes it throws your day off and sometimes you can't do anything and then back again to not that. You watch the regularity at which this thing always comes back so you can see like a fishing hook into the water. I keep throwing it in and I keep pulling out a fish and I've been missing it. Not always. You've been seeing it more as you've attuned yourself and advance, as we all do. That's what I love about growing old. Yeah, so I wouldn't trade that thing unless I could keep all of this, by the way.
Yeah.
No way. But I love getting old and smart, man. We've become smart as, I can't say the word because it's a big fat swear.
Something that really resonates with me with everything you just said is that I find that more and more, instead of fighting the sadness or the loneliness or the down, I just surrender to it. I just surrender to it. I just allow it to be. And I actually sometimes
enjoy it.
allow myself to fall in love with those, like, really, call them bad times or whatever. And I've stopped fighting it.
The conditioning of the world told us that sadness is bad. That's just one stupid, simple concept that is ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere. When you're sad, what do people do? Oh, honey, what's wrong? The sadness doesn't have an answer. It has a process. And then the process will give you a lot of answer upon clarity. And clarity simply is an emotional wave over time. So it's up and down through time. So it's the process of becoming emotionally aware in an up and down cyclical thing over time. When you get down, you're going to get smarter. And if your parents knew to tell you that when you were 4, oh, honey, no, that's perfect. No, nothing went really wrong. You're about to get smarter. This makes you more intelligent, sweetie. You get to get more beauty out of it. Mom would have known what to say. I don't know what the words would have been, but she would have known. If she could have instilled that in you or dad or whoever when you were little, you wouldn't care. Sorry to make that sound light of that. Some of this stuff gets funny after a while when you really see it. But you would, just like I promised you, you don't want to. The proof of that is, had you known all this moving forward from way back then, moving forward to now, 90% of it you wouldn't care. You'd be like, oh my God, all these things happened, but they really didn't. And you know, but here I am now. Things are, you just wouldn't want to care or give it weight. You wouldn't want to give it much weight. So you're this generator that has this cross of tension, that has a 1-3 profile, that needs to investigate and bump into things, that is a struggling and determined trial of errorist, doing trial and error and trying this and that through into perfection, finding out what doesn't work, being in control of all that, always getting back up, that now is going to learn to wait, to articulate, because I can't tell if it's the right timing until I'm lit up. That's going to see that the being lit up is the truth first, as a chemistry, independent of concept and mind and thinking and worry. And all of this is going to come together in this beautiful, almost all right arrows of your body graph that is simply open and receptive. Haven't you noticed by now that you constantly always have the answer as a response from a place that you didn't even know where the hell it came from? Tell me about that. Because
Oh,
that's a
I do. I feel that with my kids a lot. Like, I just thought it was,
great source.
yeah.
What do you spot? Like they'll come in with something and suddenly out comes words of your mouth where you didn't know you were going to know how to address that. Is that right?
It's funny when they tell me that, Mommy, you're so smart. I'm like, actually, I call it more experience.
Great.
It's just more experience.
When you're on the cross of tension, especially as a 1-3, we can guarantee that depth is going to be a pursuit for which the struggle fights and provokes, and the spirit gets filled by seeing. Your spirit fills when you can share the depth that you accrue. And as that happens, of course, experience becomes so much of that. And these arrows on your body graph on the top right, them both pointing right, means you have no idea. You're just an open ocean vessel waiting. You're like an ocean of information. Everything keeps pouring in. Dude, if we sat here at all the Great Lakes and everyone took straws, we couldn't fill up the ocean. The ocean's already full. We can just keep putting more in. You are an ocean. Right arrows on this side guarantee an ocean of information will come in, and it just rests there. And that we get mentally confused and exhausted when we think we have to do something about it, like I was saying before with the generator, thinking they have to do, versus waiting for anything else to pull it out of us. And the thing about your definition is, the reason I know you get so mentally consumed during the day that can sometimes just sit by itself all day and be delighted, um, is because this channel of abstraction on between the head and the ajna guarantees you'll be giving yourself stuff to pull from. It's like it's its own, it talks to itself. In other words, it's its own fuel and process at the same time. So the rightness of the arrows guarantee that you're not focused on any one thing and you're not trying on any one thing. It's just that when anything asks of you, a person, a sound, an incident, an event, or a mental cognitive thought, going through this process of trying to realize something and express, either of that does it. It just pulls from this right ocean. And it's like, oh my God, I know that. Oh my God, I saw it. Yeah, this goes with this. That only enhances the older we get. We pick up speed with that. Technically, by our 80s, we become almost like the Rain Man, this right facing arrow when we let it. Almost. Rain Man was special. I mean, that cat was something else, but it's very much like that. It all goes in and we pull out. So it's all the more reason for you to understand that wait, the generator waits for this rightness to get pulled out of, and it's so powerful that this rightness can go stand before a judge in court, and then it can go do this other thing over there, and it can go do this other thing over there, and it can respond its way through even the most challenging of crazy ass shit. You do that when you don't care and you just allow, and you struggle and get tensed up when you think and try and invent that you'll know. So that is a big surrender. So in the end, this generative life force is guaranteed to give you truth in response, and your emotional wave process is guaranteed to give you clarity over time. I guess the final analysis would be there's no truth in the now as it relates to any decision that you don't know. The emotional being, when I don't know is the answer. I can't tell. How about this one? Your boyfriend or husband would be like, "Well, honey, do you love me?" And here goes the struggle in you that says, "Well, mostly." You can do that. That's true at the time because you're struggling for a clarity. You're fighting for it. And so no big decisions in the now. Do you love me is a great big decision. You know what I mean? That's a big deal. A lot of confusion around that. Don't necessarily want to commit to anything at the moment. Sort of. And if I were your boyfriend, I'd have to say, that's great, honey. Yeah, I get it. Perfect. Because that's just how it goes. So have you ever found that you make rash decisions and then sort of regret it a little bit later? Yeah.
Oh, all my life, very impulsive.
It's slowed down by now.
Oh, much.
Now you can know why it's slowed down because you were recognizing intuitively that this process is going on. Now you've got words for it. Oh, I'm a design of achieving clarity through my responsive nature over time. And it's guaranteed going to get pulled out of my rightness as long as I watch it. And I'm now in the experiment of seeing all these things that Danny just pointed out to me. This is great. It is a diagnostic tool, Yeah, I sort of want to stop there, I think.
It's amazing. And I might have a lot more questions by tomorrow. Thank you. Wow.
The spirit is abundant. It wants to be. Let her rip.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm so happy everything is recorded and I can go back. Oh,
Effie, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on and guide us through that breathwork journey. Her links are in the chat. I will put them in again for everybody who is wondering. And you could also reach out to her on her Instagram. So you could go find her there. If you're like, yes, I want to use breathwork to start my deconditioning. And now that you saw what Danny said about you, you could even start doing that with your own breathwork journeys on yourself. So think of how powerful that is.
Say the words. Your open throat is so good at expressing all the hues of life because it's open to all of expression. So it is the expression. So say the stuff. Say the words right out loud, like the sound you were encouraging us to make.
Yeah. So amazing. So next week, friends, we have another wonderful guest coming on. She is a tuning fork specialist. Oh, so yes, I'm very, very excited. And so she is going to take us through her tuning fork journey for next week. So if you've been enjoying the series and you are not following us, go follow us. Tell your friends we're doing this. Also, if you want to take it one step further and support us, we have a wonderful coffee page where you can have access to all these bonus goodies that you get beyond just watching us live or on the replay. So go check that out. So when that little link goes, you're like, what is that? That's your way to be like, I love these guys. Please keep doing what you're doing. So go smash that. And with that, Danny, do you have any parting words before we come back next week and do it all over again?
Don't forget to grab my cell phone and text me with questions. You crazy generator. I love you. This will be amazing, and I will respond.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you
all
guys
right.
so much.
Excellent. Take
Have a
care.
great